the men. That aside, speaking of the reopening of the economy takes us back to the issue of fuel prices in Uganda. The fuel price fluctuation. The commodity prices are still escalating due to the crisis. As the fuel price fluctuations in Uganda, as a nation, has been putting up efforts to avert the ongoing fuel scarcity, and it's still putting in the effort to see that everything turns down. The nation underwent a fuel crisis following a build-up of fuel transporters at the major border points of Malaba and Busia in the east of the country. This was due to the requirement by the Ugandan government and truck driver test for COVID-19 at the border points. Regardless of whether they presented a negative PCR test or not, in the capital of Kampala, some filling stations were selling only the premium petrol known as V-Power by some stations, which cost 5,200 Ugandan shillings per litre at some outlets. This in turn had a price effect on the commodities, which are consumed by quite a vast population of Ugandans, in turn affected the purchasing power. Commodities I'm speaking of here is a bar of soap, talk about cooking oil and also sugar. Andrew Barije reports.
The nation went through a fuel crisis following a build-up of fuel transporters at the major border points in Malaba and Busia in the east of the country. This was due to the requirement by the Ugandan government that truck drivers must test for COVID-19 at the border points, regardless of whether they presented a negative PCR test or not. In the capital Kampala, some filling stations were selling only the premium petrol, known as V-Power, by some distributors, which costed 5,200 Ugandan shillings per litre at some outlets. This in turn had a price effect on the commodities, which are consumed by quite a vast population of Ugandans, which in turn affected the purchasing power. Before, the fuel prices increased. The prices of these commodities were fine. Before, you could get a bag of eggplants at 30,000 Ugandan shillings, and currently you can purchase it at 50,000 to 60,000 Ugandan shillings. Truth is, before, this bag of matoke was at a low price, but now it's increasing. As we speak now, in the villages, we buy it at 70,000 shillings, but before, it was costing 50,000 shillings. But now it's 70,000 shillings because we have to pay an extra 15,000 for fuel. Then here in the market, we buy it 85,000 Ugandan shillings and we sell it at 100,000 shillings or even 90,000 shillings with little profit to keep our customers. Despite the Ministry of Energy's directive to retailers that prices should never exceed 5,000 Ugandan shillings, fuel went as far as 10,000 shillings in some other countryside towns, which are a major source of commodities consumed in the urban-based markets. Before, the fuel prices increased, a kilo of meat was at 14,000 shillings, but after it rose to 14,500 shillings because the transporters demanded more transportation fees, so we decided to increase by 500 shillings. 25 kilograms of rice was costing 60,000, then rose to 70,000. 50 kilograms was at 120,000, but as we speak, 25 kilograms is costing 80,000 and 50 kilograms costing 160,000 as a result of the increase and scarcity of the fuel. Over time, fuel prices have been fluctuating in Uganda and on the East African market in general. With the liberalization of the economy in the 1987, many companies were attracted to join the petroleum industry as dealers. A combination of factors might have led to this rapid increase in the fuel prices in Uganda. Some economic and financial analysts urge that it is the effects of the COVID-19 that hit the global economy, changes in foreign exchange rates, the new tax regimes in the East African community, among others. Barija Andrew, Smart 24 TV.
How much is sugar in your area? Mine is clicking around 4,000. So a kilo. Once you go into these select shops, by the way, you will identify, the select shops of fuel stations. You will identify a kilo is now at 4,000 to 5,000 Ugandan shillings. Simple survey. Look at the bar of stock from 4,500 to 5,000. And then you ask yourself, hey, my God, where do these people get these prices from? You see, fuel stations have the weirdest prices you'll ever meet. And tell you what, most of them have very high prices. And on the narrative, you can easily tell. So when you ask most of them, they will tell you this is a select shop, this is a go-to-go shop. So they only sell a few commodities quite highly. So I'm still thinking, if sugar is now hiking, how much will be the price in most of them? So try to go around also. Do not be shocked, because these prices, like I mentioned, cooking oil, a bar of soap, and sugar, imagine all these have been affected. Still, when we did look at the effects of the fuel prices rising, we mentioned the impact of what it can bring on board here in regards to increase of cost of production. Look at the companies and industries, more so, even the Ugandan industries here that use a lot of fuel in there. So transportation, well, and one of the issues of transportation, surprisingly, have not been hiked whatsoever as of such, because when you're looking into public transport, most of the passengers are very aggressive and they can definitely go verbal knuckles, I would say, with the conductors and taxi operators, telling them, hey, you are released or you are given room to take full capacity by the president, then why are you charging us excessively? And then in the long run, the taxi operators normally retaliate by saying fuel prices are high. So you can see the cost of fuel prices and how it is actually affecting a number of businesses in there. But despite the Ministry of Energy's directive to retailers that the prices should not exceed 5,000 Ugandan shillings, fuel went as far as 10,000 shillings in some other countryside towns, which as a major source of commodities consumed in the urban and best markets. And if you didn't travel so much, most of the areas in upcountry, the eastern part, had fuel rising up to 8,000 Ugandan shillings. So you can only imagine how your own vehicle that you bought with your own money from your own sweat, well, that's all you can definitely try to understand. But with this, if you look at some of the claims here, some people in downtown, before the fuel prices increased, a kilo of meat in some areas was at 14,000. Now it is hiking to around 15,000 to 16,000 in most areas. So you can see everyone is now trying to utilize the issue of, to utilize the outcomes of the fuel prices rising from all angles to clearly see that they also benefit out of it from the different markets. Like I did say, if you're to go to fuel stations, they have one of the most expensive supermarkets, or mini supermarkets have one of the most expensive commodities, a commodity that you can get somewhere in a wholesale shop or a retail shop at 3,000, let's say above shop that was at 3,500, you can get it in a select shop at the least amount being 4,000. So that means with the prices going into a rising situation, you will expect to have these particular ones at around 4,500 to 5,000. Well, I trying to look at it and say, yes, okay, why would people try to hike a lot of these prices in a time when the nation is still in a format of revival? This year is one of economic revival and economic recovery. So please expect some of these things, more so to do with prices hiking up, prices shooting high in the air because everyone wants to get done with the loans. Everyone wants to clear off the loans that they have with various people. But with details coming in from Andrew Barigi, over time, fuel prices have been fluctuating in Uganda and on the East African market in general. With the liberalization of the economy in 1987, speaking of that is our Ugandan economy, many companies were attracted to join the petroleum industry as dealers. We have a number of petrol stations in the country, trust me. And my, oh my, on Entebbe Road, you would definitely find petrol station after petrol station in a distance of only a few meters away. Just from Chibuye alone till Namasuba, you'll find a number of petrol stations there. And a combination of factors might have led to the rapid increase in fuel prices in Uganda, one of which is a low production that was caused by the global pandemic because the fuel crisis started way back in 2021, and it was a global cause. Some of the economic and financial analysts argue that it's the effect of COVID-19 that hit the global economy. Changes in foreign exchange rates greatly affected then the new tax regimes in the East African community, among others. Well,